Hi everyone, it's FSketcher fashion drawing tutorials, and in this lesson we're going to render this amazing look from Gucci Spring 2018 ready-to-wear collection. So here we have a lot of sequins and translucent chiffon. First I start drawing the actual croquis, and when you draw and you want to check symmetry, just turn the image upside down. So I don't draw rectangles or anything. I will include the link to the face drawing if you still have any problems with drawing faces. I don't explain right now. So I don't draw any rectangles that I explain for beginners to use as a framework. So I just start drawing the head and then I fix everything on the way. But what's really important is drawing the eyes in the middle, so not too high. So next I'm drawing shoulder, waist and hip lines. Everything is bent slightly, shoulders and hips in opposite directions because she's moving, walking on a catwalk. So next I'm just connecting all the lines. Again, I will include the link to the body drawing tutorial because here I'm not explaining that. I'm just showing some behind the scenes before we start rendering the texture. So here she has something that really looks like coif, and so just the headwear, and it's covering not just the head but also her neck. And here we have sleeves with some ruffles, really volumized sleeves. So as you can see, there is almost no space between her waist and the sleeves. So now let's get rid of all unnecessary lines. Here she has some fragments of the dress made of translucent chiffon. So I also included the photograph of original design, so you can open it and maybe redraw yourself. Front fold, we draw it a bit lower because it's closer to us, and the side folds, we're going to draw them a bit upper because they are a bit further. So for the hands, I usually draw two lines. One is shorter, that is inside, and then I attach fingers. So here I'm outlining her coif with a bit curly lines to resemble the texture because sequins on the surface is not that smooth. She has a necklace, so I'm just drawing many different shapes. And here I outlined everything. Let's finish drawing this triangular pattern. And next I'm using patty color. So first I show shadows. Nose bridge, her tip of her nose, eyelids, and the sides with cheekbones, just like face contouring. Next, I cover everything with almond. Next, I'm using pumpkin color, which is really bright orange. I'm using it to cover all that cap and neck details, sleeves. So if you use any other brand of markers, just try to match your markers to these colors. I'm using really bright orange. Again, it's pumpkin color. Next, I have two options, burnt orange or this is terracotta. They look very similar, so I'm going to stick to terracotta color, which is really like a dark reddish orange. So really good for shadows when you work with orange. So I'm showing the folds on her neck and on the ruffles by leaving some light spots. So basically those are the tops of the folds. And on the sleeves, mostly the sides will be darker. And in the center, I will include a couple of folds because, you know, fabric is just I don't think that it's very stiff and structured, so it tends to wrinkle a little bit. Making some dots with pumpkin, previous color. As if you use markers before, you know that when you use marker the second layer is a bit darker. That's why when I use pumpkin, making these dots, those dots appear darker on one layer of pumpkin because it's second layer, right? So more dots with pumpkin color. Now I'm using burnt umber, which is reddish brown. And inside of those shadows that I made with terracotta color, making them deeper. As you see, central parts of the sleeves and cuffs are light. Okay, so next I'm using Cool Gray 5. I just want to fix your face a little bit. So Cool Gray 5. I want to make some shadows even darker. So now I'm using white ink gel pen and adding many dots. I add more dots in the light area where we have just pumpkin color, and less but still add a couple of dots in super dark parts. So you know, the lighter the area, more dots you have. Sometimes I draw like tiny several strokes instead of just dots. You know, it's when you draw lots, you actually become much more brave, because when you're just beginner, you feel like, I will spoil something. Now I use correction pen and adding some intense light just here and there. But when you draw often, you just feel like, what if it look cool like? And you start discovering more. So really make yourself draw more. Showing some, you know, edges with white ink gel pen. Adding more of the shadows on your face with patty color. And using almond. Almond is a bit lighter than patty for skin. So, and I just colored those transparent parts because there we see skin. And even if she's not naked underwear, she's probably wearing, it looks like she's wearing something of a skin tone, some underwear. Next, with a Cool Gray 1 or 2, you can add some shadows on the sides. And I'm using lavender for coloring area between your legs and the sides. Extra shadows. For the blue parts of your dress, I'm using blue pearl color, which is this soft light blue. Next, I'm using Prussian color and making these dots. Let's try royal blue as well, because it's a bit warmer and matches more the actual color of the design. But I'm going to mix them later. Next, with white ink gel pen, I'm adding dots on the top of those dots that I made with marker just now. Sometimes I make strokes, so it's mix of vertical lines and dots. And next, with just blue fine liner, I'm coloring the stones of your necklace. Inside of those stones, please color with your fine liner, the black one. And then add highlights with correction pen. So next I'm using Cool Gray 3 for the shadows. Next I'm going to work in a very similar way as I worked before. I'm making dots with royal blue. And then I'm making many dots with white ink gel pen. And I'm just making a dark background for all those white dots and strokes with a Cool Gray 3. Also coloring the sides of your legs. And here I'm adding dots with Prussian. So next I'm drawing stripes, just vertical stripes on the edge. Basically I'm covering those dots made with blues. And on the other side. So more of the lavender between her legs and on the side. Next I'm using China blue. Well, you don't have to use that many colors. This is royal blue, making dots. This is how I made the dots, because I just didn't, in the camera it's not visible, the bottom. You don't need that many markers, but when you mix different colors, it just looks more interesting. I left the highlights and I used China blue and royal blue to make these dots. So as you can see, highlights, for example, the left one is stretched, it looks like the top of the fold. Now I'm making some vertical strokes with China blue. And with Cool Gray 5, I'm adding some really deep shadows on the side of that fold. So that light area is the top of the fold, and usually sides have shadows. So I'm showing them, and just a bit here. So a bit of Cool Gray 3. Here adding more of China blue. So you can add shadows, like light shadows with the same color, and use some dark grays for really deep colors. So more of the dots with white ink gel pen. And again, I will add more where we have in the light area. Sometimes I really add dots, sometimes I just make some like strokes. I try to randomize everything, even the shapes. Next, making many dots with Cool Gray 5 on the back part of your skirt. So it's like dark, and some Cool Gray 5, and adding some bigger white dots with correction pen everywhere. Again, with the China blue on the other side, I'm going to leave some of the folds in the shape of these branches. So this is all the top of the folds, and the back part I'm going just to color it. And inside of that darker area, I'm coloring with royal blue. Just a bit less, so you still can see china blue. Next, I'm using Cool Gray 5. Next, I'm using Prussian and making all these dots. Sometimes I color, sometimes I just add dots. So some strokes on the edge with china blue, more dots with royal blue. And now again, dots with white ink gel pen and some strokes on the edge. And between those parts again, also some row of strokes. So more and more of the dots. It's strange to explain what you're doing, because when you draw, you actually do many spontaneous, you have many spontaneous decisions and actions which you don't think about. So it's strange to explain. Now I'm using Cool Gray 3 and Ice Gray 4 for the shadows, because those light blue parts lack some volume. I'm adding some details with just a blue fine line pen. Here's more shadows. I want to add more of the eyelashes here. In order to make those parts more textured, I'm using something like this. Just these long shapes on the edges. Sometimes you can draw small circles or just curly lines. Usually because when there is some type of embellishment, from distance you cannot really distinguish what it's made of. Is it some embroidery, or there are some chains or crystals? So we're giving the same effect. Like when you draw it like this, there is like, you don't give an idea what's that exactly, but it makes the embellishment more complex. So with Cool Gray 5, I'm adding the shadows, just showing some ground. And sign your sketch. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Subscribe to FSketcher channel on YouTube and support FSketcher on Patreon for more exclusive tutorials. Follow Sketcher on Instagram for any news and updates. Like it on Facebook, share your questions and suggestions, and see you next tutorial.